Welcome everyone to Needed Conversations once again. Thanks for being here one more time and just take a listen to this podcast / YouTube channel. I'm very thankful for your life. Thanks for being here. And for this episode, I had the chance to speak with my friend Erick Quan. He's a psychology major and I know he's working on his master's right now. He's about to graduate, so he's a pretty smart guy. And the theme for today is secular music. I know for Christians this is a very controversial theme, and a lot of people have a lot of things to say about it, and they have different convictions and different ways of seeing this. So I think this is gonna be a really good conversation and you're gonna enjoy it. Please let me know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment. And if you're listening to it through podcast, then please write a review. This is going to help me to take this podcast to a lot more people. And we're going to impact more lives as we go. So let's just take a look at this and we'll see you after this conversation. Welcome everyone to Needed Conversations again. Today I have Erick Quan with me. He's a really good friend of mine. We met 2 years ago?
Around that, yeah.
And I think we met playing soccer, or what were we doing?
At the gym.
You
and
gym.
Mufasa saw me, and then I joined you guys.
Right.
Yeah.
And then after that it was
It's an intense, terrible workout. But
something like that, yeah. But he learned, and now he's teaching other people, and I'm excited for that. But so before that, I want you to introduce, before we start talking about today's topic, I want you to introduce yourself. What should people know about you, Erick?
Well, I am studying to be a clinical psychologist. That's my master's degree. I don't know, man. I love playing sports. I am very analytical. Scientific method is the way to go for me.
Right.
Try things until you get it right. And pretty much I like just studying the Bible and trying to make sense of it, because at times it makes no sense.
Right.
And honestly, pretty much that's it. Very relaxed.
Yeah, one of the verses from the Bible that I think that makes no sense, I think is it's in Kings, or around Kings, and it says that I think it was Elijah that whenever he was praying for rain, there was a small cloud, and then he sent his servant on the horses ahead to the town, and then it says that the Holy Spirit came over him, and then he outran the horses and got to the town first. I'm like, man, he was the first Flash, the real Flash.
That is true, yeah.
And that was it doesn't make sense, because nowadays we don't see people like that.
Correct.
But I'm like, wow, it really doesn't make sense.
Yep, it doesn't.
But so that's not what we're gonna talk in this episode. But for this episode, I wanted to talk to Erick about what is listening to secular music really wrong or not, and I want to hear your point of view. I know recently I did a video in Spanish, and then you sent me some references and feedback, and you were like, man, this is my take out, or something like that.
Yep, correct.
From it, and I was like, man, I think people need to hear this also in English. So
yeah, that would be great, and thank you.
So first of all, let's go for it. Let's just talk to me about your perspective on it, is it good or not?
I don't think, because I've asked that question a long time ago, and a wise professor of ours told me music, we can't define it as, if it's just instrument stuff, you can't define that as good or bad, because it's just sounds. But it is the lyrics within the songs that you have to analyze. And depending on that, that's where you make part of your decision whether it's good or bad.
Right.
It's one of the things that it's hard for people, because everybody loves, a lot of people love music.
Right.
They like the rhythm. You see it everywhere. well, it's an advertisement for the iPhone or the World Cup or the World Series or the Super Bowl, you always see music. So I always had that. So I never had an issue whether to determine that to people, like, is it good or bad? I would always go back to, well, what does the lyrics say?
Right.
But then it gets complicated. Why? Because then you have Christmas music, then you have even the happy birthday itself.
Right.
Like, how would you define those things? And that was one of the things that I actually mentioned it to you, which was in Philippians, I think it was 4:6, I think it was.
Yeah, it is. I think
When it says, when Paul tells us, think about these things, is it noble? Is it pure? Is it, worthy of praise? All these things he mentions that I realize that's a criteria that I need to follow.
Right.
Would this be something good? Not good just to me, but is it something good? Is it like, oh, that's nice? Because one of your friends said, like, what if I don't mind writing a romantic song to my girlfriend,
Right.
or to my wife? And I was like, yeah, that's noble, that's sweet, so that's okay. But of course, when we get to more extreme, when it starts dealing more with sexuality, when it
Right.
starts dealing more with just money, killing, and I tell people, I don't mind bad words. I don't think it's gonna send you to hell, but it says a lot about your character.
Right.
And if the words are only about bad words, probably like 30% of it, then what's the gain out of it?
Right.
So I tell people, like, those things are not following that part of, is it noble? Is it pure? Is it all these things that Paul was trying us to say, like, think about these things, because these are good things to think about, not all those that now we would say, like, trashy things that
Right.
kill us.
Like Despacito.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people don't really know what that song talks about, and it's basically just talking about having sex with a girl.
Yep.
And it's so
Slow
weird. 'Cause-
motion.
Right, and it goes like into detail in it, and for us in Spanish, we're like, oh, what the heck?
Yep.
But people are just like, oh no, the rhythm's catchy and stuff like
Yep.
that. And like, but it's not the only thing your brain's catching.
Correct. And of course, because I know people say, like, well, it's good music. Of course, I'm not disregarding that the artist doesn't have a talent. No, they have a talent,
Right.
and they come up with that type of music that I don't agree with, but it's a talent. They have the skill to make a catchy rhythm and put words with it.
Right.
But one of the other things that I told you was 1 Corinthians 13:1, when it talks about how God is love and describes what love reality is. Patient, kind, doesn't covet, doesn't envy, so on and so forth. And one of the things is, and I use that as a reference towards me,
Right.
is this aligning me with God or away from God? Why? Because just as how Paul said, about food, hey, if your brother doesn't like that type of food, don't eat it in front of him. With even the head coverings, what does it matter that they cover their heads and that you don't? If you go to their house out of respect, cover your heads. If you go to, don't cover your heads. But if you want to cover your head, cover it. Like, all these things that Paul was saying, like, falls under the same thing of, if I know that this type of music will bring you back memories of things that you did in the past, and it's gonna hurt your spirit, then why should I do it in front of you?
Right.
Because that's not love.
Right.
I think about you, and so, like, oh, I don't know. And also, especially with all those sexual songs that we have out there, if I put a song like that, will that trigger something in you, that desire in you, that will make you fall?
Right. And I feel like music plays a big role in the environment that you're at. I've been in different occasions where I'm in the gym, and there's different songs coming up, and then your mind starts thinking about stuff that you're like, wait.
Yeah.
It all started because of the song, because of the lyrics of the song. Like, if it's a romantic song, then maybe a girl that I like comes to my mind.
Correct.
And then you start thinking about her because the song started talking about it. And then if it's like a worship song, like sometimes you just like picture yourself, like worshiping or something like that, because our minds are very visual. So you kind of like see pictures while you're thinking, and it's all another times there's been like, I don't know, one of those reggaeton songs that talk about stealing someone's girl comes up, and then these weird thoughts come at you, like you should talk to this girl and stuff like that, and you're like, man, I'm only thinking this because of the song. Like, it's not even something that's in my heart. It's just the environment that was shifted because of what I'm listening to. And I think that's something people need to understand. Like, it might not be a sin to hear, you know, like secular music, but it does play a big role on the environment that you're playing. And depending on your intentions, then, you know, you have to decide if you want to listen to certain music and stuff like that.
Because one of the things that I tell people, you know, you have to be careful, because you become what you listen, you become with who you hang with, you become with what you do, even to with what you eat. Because if you eat unhealthy, then you're going to be an unhealthy person. All those little details that I told them, like, don't underestimate all these things. For example, like even when I said about the bad words, I don't think if you say bad words, you're going to go to hell. That's minuscule. But what does that say about your character? So I told him, like, that's why I don't underestimate those things. Because we know saying bad words may sound disrespectful. And I don't want to lose control of that. Because some people just can't stop. Same with music. What does that say about you? Because like you said, it plays a lot, that environment-wise, of even when you see sad movies and they play a sad song and then you cry because of the environment, the ambient that they created.
Or like you're watching some action movie and then the movie ends and you feel like you're part of the movie when you're walking out of the theater. And I'm alert, I'm about to fight someone.
Literally, so for me that's the thing. But it obviously becomes, and it's more individual, like every person has to think about all these things. All this criteria in Philippians, all this criteria in Corinthians, and up to the point of what is this going to hurt my brother? For example, at least as of now with my girlfriend, I tell her, because sometimes she likes those songs, and I told her, like, just be careful. I don't mind it. Just be careful it doesn't become a habit. Why? Because if you, and I do believe this, if you start listening more to all those songs, and we're talking about the extreme ones, that's sexualizing ones.
Like sexual ones, or like the ones that demean 90% of the song is cussing.
And demean men or women. So like you're gonna eventually become that. It puts pictures, especially like if you're in a relationship or marriage, it puts pictures of you, of your spouse, or even worse, of someone else. So you have to protect that holiness, purity of you. We struggle daily, even so I add more to it. And those songs that don't say something bad, don't make it too much of a habit, because you later on center yourself of, this song makes me feel this way, instead of thinking, I want to worship God. Because I don't think we should make it a habit just to worship God Sundays and Wednesdays, or Sundays and Fridays. It should be a lifestyle of praiseworthy spirit and in truth all the time. So trying to replace those songs with, because when you listen to worship songs, that's what brings out in you.
And brings out worship, and then you start worshiping.
Or you become thankful, because you're like, yeah, you're right. I was going through a hard time and this helped me, and thank you, Lord. And then you start following through the same thought. So I know it's tough, or some people may think of me as extreme, but at the end of the day, a Christ-like lifestyle is not easy. That's why we have to every day ask for the Spirit, renew my strength. Lord, thank you for your mercy, for your grace and kindness, but let's keep pushing forth. Because some things are irrelevant. For example, and the ones that I don't think they're bad, is it beneficial or not to me? Because I can do anything, like Paul says, but is it beneficial? Is it taking away from me my time from God? Why? Because I used to put worship music in worship, but not anymore. Or even to a point like, is it activating something within me?
And I think it also comes to like the deal that you have with the Holy Spirit, because I feel like He works in different ways with other people. For some people, there's people that have been asked from God to just listen to Christian music, because I heard it from friends who are like, yeah, like I was praying, I placed in my heart that the only music that I want to be listening to is Christian music, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
There's other people that don't have that, you know, God hasn't asked them to do that, and I feel like there's nothing wrong with that, but it all comes to the convictions that you have in your heart about it, and it doesn't make it, you know, right or wrong. I think I don't remember exactly where in the Bible, but it says like if you doubt about something and you still do it, then that becomes sin.
Correct. Something good. If you know you have to do something good, and you don't do it, that's a sin. If you know you shouldn't do something,
or if you don't know if something's good, and then you probably shouldn't be doing it because you don't know until you're certain that it's a good thing, then you're allowed to do it. And I feel, and while we were talking about this, it came to my mind of a story when I was in high school. In my phone I had music from all kinds, you know, like Christian music, and I had, you know, like other famous music at the time from a regular artist. And I had a friend, he was barely getting to know God, but back then, I mean, I was pretty young, so I didn't really care about any of that, about, you know, caring for the hearts and stuff like that. But I do remember it was one day, he started listening to these like music, but it was more of a like heavy heart rock, but you know, sometimes that can be like kind of like demonic and stuff. He was listening to that kind of music, and I don't remember who told him, you know, in the classroom, they were like, hey, why are you listening to that? It's not bad. I mean, it's not good to you. It's bad. Like, it's gonna mess with your spirit. It's gonna mess with your mind. And then he was like, well, I just want to be like Abiud. He has music from all kinds and stuff like that. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, like, dang, I didn't think people were paying attention to my playlist, you know. I didn't think they were paying attention to what I was listening to. But then it kind of like clicked in my mind. And I mean, back then I was like, whatever. And I'm sorry for that, because I feel like if it would have clicked in my mind earlier, I could have helped him. And right now he's not Christian anymore, and he's really not following God's steps anymore. So he's kind of like, oh my gosh, if I would have paid attention to that back then, and not, you know, maybe my convictions weren't the same, but I did make him trip somehow, you know. And that's what we're called not to do, you know, to not become a stone for them to trip.
Stumbling block. A rock. And that's the thing I tell people. I don't do a lot of things because of the same reason that what happened with you. Like, a lot of people look, maybe not up to me, but they look at me. And they judge. Well, he says he's a Christian. If he does this, then I'll do this. Right? You gotta remember that even, I think it was Paul and John. I don't know if it was Paul or Barnabas, who these town people created statues of them, and they were pretty much telling them like, these are gods among us. And these two apostles came and they ripped their clothes and said like, no, this is not us. It's all from God. We're just pretty much mere instruments. We're just like you guys. But it is him. And I don't want that. I don't want people to come to God and be like, but your son did this. He was my example. Hence, we got to be Christ-like because we are the example. And that's the only thing that they'll ever know. Possibly, or maybe they may get another chance with someone else. That's one of the things. And I told them like, well, at the end of the day, what is your intentions? My intention is to, and it's the only intention, but mine is, like you mentioned, you know, I wish that I would have had a better understanding so I could have helped that friend of yours. Same with me. It has happened to me in the past. So I don't want that happen if people see me on Facebook. All my people in Honduras see me. It's like, well, now if Erick does it,
he's gone to the club and started getting crazy.
And they're like, and I thought he was a Christian. I guess he must have seen something, found something, and then they use that as an excuse or as an explanation that it's not true, because they don't know the context. So my intentions is to try to help people understand, like,
and it all applies to, you know, music, drinking, smoking, all of that. You know, people have different convictions about it, but you have to be careful not to become a stumbling rock for someone else, you know, because then you're sinning because of that.
Yes, and if your attitude straight from the start is, well, if he does it, why can't I? That's the worst start.
Right.
It means that you're just starting.
It's the worst mindset.
Yes, because you're already starting by being jealous.
And by comparing yourself.
Correct. And that's not good. That's literally what love is not about. If the moment you tell God, like, how come you convicted him, but you didn't convict me, or you convicted me, but not them, yet again, like, it's the wrong intentions. You have to, the problem, I would tell the person is, or the issue is, or the focus, don't think that the focus is the music.
Right.
That's more of a heart's matter.
Right.
What is really going on in your heart that you're starting pointing fingers?
Right.
But they can do this. And that's what happened with Adam and Eve. They pointed fingers because the snake told them, like, what if, you don't know. They're like, yeah, that's right. And they bit. Same with Cain and Abel.
Right.
How come you're happy for him and not for me?
Right.
And then
and the thing is that it was, if you pay attention in the Bible in that story, it was Cain. That's Cain. It was Cain's idea to offer to God, but Abel did it better.
Yeah.
Because he offered a better offering to him. So I feel like in that moment he compared himself because he probably thought, it was my idea, and then he came and stole, the price of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it all came because, first of all, he didn't give his best. He didn't honor God the way he should have. And then he compared himself. He compared his offering to his, to his brothers. And then it all led to the worst, and he ended up killing, Abel.
And at the end of the day, I tell people, the most important thing is pray truthfully.
Right.
Because people pray with a predetermined answer they want to hear.
Right.
And, well, that kind of ruins everything. But I tell them, like, if God told you what you really want, and he removed it from your life, and said, like, no, you can't have this, would you still be okay worshiping that God?
Right.
Because if you're not, then you're more in love with whatever he said no to.
Right.
But if you said, you know what, it's okay, then you're more in love with God. So I tell people, like, focus on that, because he may say you can't do this,
right,
but the other one may be able to. And if you don't have the heart, then you're going to start comparing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we know that in the Bible, at least with Peter and John, when Jesus was telling Peter, like, well, I think you're going to die for my name. And he said, like, what about him? And he pointed at John. And Jesus says, like, hey, whatever goes on with him, it's his issue. Whatever goes on with you is your issue. Like,
right.
Focused on you. That's one of the things, and we tend to do because we don't want bad things, or we don't want good things taken away from us.
Right.
So it's really hard, and I always told them, like, and don't think that the answer is going to come
right away.
Right.
I feel like it also matters your relationship with Christ, how close you are and how in tune you are with him,
Yeah.
Are you able to really hear his voice, or you're just trying once in a while and then expecting something supernatural to happen?
Correct.
And if you don't build a relationship with him, it's like any other relationship. You won't know their character. You won't understand them, and that same thing happens. You won't hear or understand God's voice until you spend time with them and actually develop that relationship.
Because I was hearing a psychologist, his name is Jordan Peterson, and they asked him, can you do this type of diet because he has a certain disease that he needs to? And he says, like, yeah, I can do anything for a month and try it and see if it works for me. That's one of the things that people could try to do. Not listen to worship music for a month, let's see how well they feel in tune. Or listen to worship for a whole month, just focused on that.
And see
how
it changes.
Fruits, the fruits of that specific month. Yeah. Of course, not just listening, but also spending time with God, reading the Word, studying the Word, and all those things.
Right.
Because it's pointless that, okay, I'm just going to listen to it, but you really didn't listen anything to it. It was just background music. And they'd be like, well, it did nothing. So, of course, it's not going to do anything.
Right.
So,
and, you got to be intentional about it.
Correct.
And just to finish this conversation, because I don't want it to be too long, because I want people to hear it from the beginning to the end. Is there anything you would like to say as a final, advice or word to some people, that are, maybe like they were struggling with this thought and now it kind of like cleared up. Just told them, it might be good if you want to try this, you want to try that. Is there anything else that you want to say to any of them, about this, theme?
I always pray for something, and it's everyone should pray for it, of course, is Lord, guard my thoughts and protect my heart. If my heart, emotion side, that's what we think, is right with God, my intentions are never going to be evil, and I'm always going to strive to do good.
Right.
And if my thoughts are right and they're noble like He would want me to, when a bad thought comes, I will know it's not from Him. That will be my conviction in life.
Right.
It varies, but I tell people, pray for those things, because if you want to talk about spiritual stuff, obviously we're not, but if you want to make it spiritual, the devil's always going to attack those two.
Right.
If we're going to talk about even like physical stuff, anything you hear or listen, anything you do, it's always going to affect your thoughts and your emotions.
Right.
But if you always pray for God's protection to take those bad thoughts captive, then you'll be able to think clearly, more in spirit, more of heavenly things than of earthly things, more things that are carnal or material.
And if you think about it, every sin, every bad decision, it all starts in your mind. It starts with a thought. So if you are actually able to do that and pray and ask God for protection of your thoughts in your heart, then you have a big advantage in life, So, well, Erick, thank you so much for being here with me. Thanks for accepting my invitation.
It's always fun.
I hope everyone watching or hearing this liked it. It was a blessing to y'all. I just encourage everyone to subscribe, leave a comment with your thoughts, if you liked it or not, if you like Erick or not. He's a cool dude, so I'm pretty sure everyone liked him. But I'll see you here next time, and thanks for being here till the end. All right.
Bye, guys.
Hey everyone, thank you for staying until the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was a blessing to your life, just as it was to mine. It was a pleasure to have Erick Quan here with us, and I just encourage you to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, to like this video, leave me a comment, and if you're listening to it through the podcast, then put a review on it. I wanna see what you think, and also share with some friends if you think this is something people need to hear. And thank you so much for being part of this. We're getting better, and I promise better content, better themes and topics are coming up, so be ready for that. And if you have anything you want to hear about, please answer to the post on my social media or just send me a DM. I would love to speak to you, connect with you, and find new themes and topics that we can talk about in this podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you here next time.